Welcome to my fellow Idahoans. My name is Jim Thomas. I'm the producer of this fine show, and today I'll be the host as well. I am quite honored and pleased to have with me Steve Hall. Steve Hall, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Jim.
Now, Steve, you're here because you're a very special citizen in Idaho. You are, what's your formal position here that we're discussing?
Well, I volunteer for the organization called the Fair Tax.
Fair Tax. So fairtax.org, right?
Correct.
Fairtax.org. And you live here in Idaho.
Native Idahoan.
Native Idahoan. Where'd you go to school?
Bishop Kelly.
Oh, is that? That's just right, yeah, right
next
over our
door,
shoulder.
yeah.
At any rate, so Bishop Kelly, that's great. And college?
Boise State.
Is that? Oh, excellent.
Yes, I am an economist via Boise State University.
Oh, excellent. How's our economy?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's another show.
Exactly.
Anyway, yeah. Well, so very good. Are you retired now? Semi-retired? Or what?
Pretty much retired. Yes, we had Dairy Queen stores here in the Treasure Valley. We had 10 stores at one point.
Is that
and,
right?
We sold those a few years ago, and so I'm semi-retired and busier than ever.
Excellent. And so you volunteer as a coordinator for fairtax.org?
Correct.
Now, so do you have a region of the country or the state, or?
Well, I try and help out our state director here in Idaho and give my 2 cents worth at the national level too. So.
Okay, so the national folks, so there is a national quote-unquote organization.
There is, yes.
Now, fairtax.org, I think I sort of heard of fair tax, that concept, several years ago. Then it sort of went away. And now you're back. It's back.
Well, just a brief history. 1999, the bill was first introduced into Congress.
99?
1999,
So
but
13
prior to
years
that, in 1995, there were a group of people who got together, said there's got to be a better way, something better than this broken income tax system. And they did the research. They invested $22 million into study and research of this concept. The bill was introduced in 99, and fairtax.org thought initially that they could do it by lobbying.
When you say do it, do what?
To get the fair tax bills passed via lobbying in Washington.
And to get a fair tax bill passed, that basically says we're getting rid of income tax.
Exactly.
I mean, no more 1040s?
No 1040s, no IRS.
I don't have to keep all those receipts?
No receipts, no audits.
Oh my.
And you keep your whole paycheck, Jim.
Well, yeah, unless I want to pay for some of the services that are currently offered by the federal government.
But when your paycheck comes out, they're not going to deduct payroll taxes. They're not going to be deducting estimated income taxes and withholding and so forth. So you're going to keep, at least federally, you're going to keep most of your paycheck. So
that's great. Well, there's Obama tax coming, Obamacare tax.
That's another show.
Yes, that's another show indeed. But I have mentioned before to my wonderful audience that, well, both that this Obamacare thing is just a stupid law that needs to be repealed, and certainly I've made everybody know over and over again that I think income tax is absolutely evil to the fifth power for 5 great reasons. And in fact, I know you know what those reasons are out there because I've repeated it so bloody often. And I was really, really glad to hear, hey, we're having a meeting, fairtax.org. And I said, wow, this is great. There are people still interested in this.
Yes, actually quite a movement nationally.
Yeah, so now what, as I understand, they're doing sort of a grassroots kind of campaign.
The lobbying effort didn't work. Number one, because lobbyists don't want to get rid of the income tax. Over half the lobbying in Washington is done for tax favors. The politicians don't want to get rid of the income tax because that's the way that they buy votes. You give a favor here and a favor there. Everybody can find somewhere in this goofy income tax code to give special favors to somebody.
As an example, I'm just curious. Now, Mike Crapo, our senator, recently was in the news, quoted. I mean, they had his voice, I think, where he was saying, "Boy, I fought for the sugar program in the ag bill." What does that mean? And now, does he then get political support somehow from the sugar
Of course he does.
people?
Sure.
And it just seems a little fishy.
It's not good.
For a word.
It's not good. And
Anyway.
so the lobbying effort
Yes.
did not work. So here about 5 years ago, they made a major shift and said we're going to have to go to grassroots. It's going to have to come from a popular support of the people. And so now we have a whole different ballgame developing.
All right, so if I'm a responsible citizen and you come to me and you say, "Hey, fairtax.org, we want to get rid of income tax, 1040s, that whole business. We want to get rid of it." And as a responsible American, I'm going to say, "Well, wait a minute. How are we going to pay, our taxes? How are we going to fund the federal government? We're running a deficit as it is right now." What's the answer that comes from fairtax.org?
Well, I'm not one of those people who think we shouldn't have any taxes. I think that what taxes we do have, we're going to have to pay them. So if we eliminate the income tax, what's the replacement?
That's the question. What's the
A
replacement?
consumption tax is so much fairer than an income tax. Think about it, and that's why it was unconstitutional when the founders wrote the Constitution.
What was
income
unconstitutional?
taxes
Income tax was
were
not constitutional.
prohibited in the Constitution. In fact, we're coming up on a centennial next year, Jim.
We sure are.
The 100-year anniversary of the income tax, which was passed in 1913, and has an awful history, as you well know. But the replacement would be a consumption tax, and part of the reason the founders prohibited income taxes was the theory that your income, what you earn, is a measure of what you're contributing to society. If I contribute, produce, then I'm going to earn income. And they thought we should not be taxing what people produce, whereas consumption is what you're taking out of society. And so much fairer to tax consumption than income in the first place. And I think that's one of the arguments in your evils of the income tax, as I recall. So yes, the replacement would be what we call the fair tax. There are two bills in Congress.
Sorry to interrupt. Consumption tax, is that sales tax?
Correct.
Okay, so why call it consumption tax? Why not just call it sales tax? Why confuse our poor, greater unwashed?
They do. They call it a national sales tax.
It's a national sales tax.
Yes.
All right, so we're saying fair tax, the fairest of taxes, is a sales tax.
Correct.
At the national level, whatever. The worst, the most evil tax, which was prohibited by the Constitution, the original Constitution, is income tax.
Correct.
All right, so fairtax.org is saying we want to repeal the 16th Amendment to the Constitution and get rid of income tax altogether, and to replace that revenue to the federal government, institute a national sales tax.
Correct.
All right, very good. So that's in addition to state sales taxes.
This is only federal.
Yeah, we're talking
about
federal. So the
level.
taxes I pay as Joe Blow citizen, I'm going to pay, well, the myriad of taxes other than income tax, but I will also pay this national sales tax.
Correct.
So it's when you go to the store, whatever you buy, wait a minute, I buy food. You're going to national sales tax?
Correct.
Going to tax food?
Correct.
What about poor people and food stamps? I mean,
And medical services and all of that will be taxed at the retail level. However, a couple points I need to make. Number one, every product and service that you buy has taxes built into it.
well, sure.
Your dentist has to pay payroll taxes. Businesses have to pay corporate income taxes, the highest in the world, by the way, right now. And all of those, the businesses don't pay taxes. They have to pass those on or they go out of business.
You mean, they can't go print money to pay
Correct.
taxes?
They're
No,
like the
they
Fed.
can't do
They
that.
they can't do
Can't print
that.
money to take care of their taxes. They have to get it from us,
So
the
we pay
consumers.
it. We pay it. So every product that you buy, the best estimate we've seen is about 22 cents of every dollar that you pay for a product is embedded taxes.
22% of the price I pay for Fiji apples. You're saying 22% of that price is some sort of income
Embedded
tax?
taxes.
Embedded income tax on the corporations?
Both corporate tax, payroll taxes. They have to pay part of our FICA, Social Security, and the cost of compliance with the income tax is huge.
Oh, yeah, amen. All the CPAs and just the cost of all the record keeping?
450 billion a year is what they
Oh, that's
estimate.
ridiculous.
600 billion hours. Of,
The electricity market. Everybody's addicted to electricity in this country, and that market's only about 220 billion.
right.
You're saying 2 times that?
For tax compliance costs. Hardly
Oh,
anybody can do their
God.
own taxes anymore. They either go
Oh.
to H&R Block or buy TurboTax. You can't
Oh.
understand them. You can't comply.
Amen.
The compliance
I
tasks
agree.
are horrible. And even the IRS can't interpret the 70,000 pages of tax code.
70,000 pages.
So,
It's ridiculous. 70,000 pages.
so the other thing, Jim, that you said tax, food, medical. One of the approaches for poor people and for paying those basic necessities would be to exempt food and exempt medical and exempt this
Clothes.
and exempt that. Once you start down that path, where do you draw the lines? You know, then we start getting into this convoluted mess like we have with our current income tax system.
Yeah.
What they did was brilliant. They put this thing in place as part of the fair tax bill called a prebate.
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 I'll
What's a
explain.
prebate?
I'll explain the pre in just a moment. But the rebate part is that for all of your basic necessities, you're not going to pay any tax. What they use is the federal government determines through a number they call the poverty level. They say anything below that doesn't meet all your basic needs. Right? If you're below what X amount is $20-some thousand for a family, if you're below that, then you don't have enough income to meet all your basic needs of food, medical
Okay.
care, utilities, etc. So they calculate that amount and rebate that to you. So in other words, it'd be just like a deduction under the current system, I suppose, or a rebate. You get to keep more of your own money. But in this case, they do it prebate. They send it out at the first of each month. They do it in advance instead of
So
afterwards.
the federal government will be sending people who are below that minimum
No.
level.
They'll be sending everybody a check every month, everybody who shows they're a U.S. citizen. They'll send
Yeah.
them a check equal to the amount of the national sales tax on that poverty level. You with me?
Okay, yeah, sure.
So not only are you going to keep your whole paycheck, except for state deductions, but you're going to get a check in the mail every month, which offsets the taxes you would pay on food, clothing, medical, etc.